A nuclear waste battle is brewing between the state of Idaho and the U.S. Navy.
The Snake River Alliance has intercepted a document outlining a strategy to get nuclear waste around state government and into Idaho.
News Center 7's Jake Putnam is following this story. He joins us now from the newsroom with the details. Jake?
Well, Jerry D., the Navy thinks they can open Idaho's borders to future shipments of waste. The Navy document to the Federal Office of Management and Budget says the nation's national security is at stake.
The Snake River Alliance intercepted this document from the Chief Counsel of the Navy. The position paper outlines ways the Navy can get around state government, allowing spent fuel rods from the nuclear Navy into the INEL.
One of the most devious ideas in this memo is where we see the nuclear Navy saying that they're trying to cut a deal with the Department of Energy so that only the nuclear Navy fuel will come to Idaho at first, but then sometime later all of the Department of Energy fuel would come. That would mean that right away Idaho would get 580 shipments of spent fuel from the nuclear Navy.
And the Snake River Alliance says that could mean 1,000 additional Department of Energy shipments to Idaho.
Governor Phil Batt fired off this letter to the Navy addressing the seriousness of Navy nuclear waste issues in Idaho.
Not only has the ability.
Governor Batt met with Admiral DeMars of the Navy last January. There, Batt agreed to accept the remainder of Governor Anders's waste shipments. Batt had considered accepting more shipments, but the governor had a change of heart, and Kerry Cook praised him for standing up to the Navy. Representative Mike Crapo says the U.S. Navy doesn't care where the spent fuel rods go.
At the federal level, the administration is downplaying the importance of nuclear power. They're reducing the emphasis on funding for environmental management, and yet they aren't finding any permanent solutions for the storage of spent nuclear fuel.
But the national security issues are raising the stakes in the waste battle. The Navy says without Navy waste shipments to Idaho, the refueling of aircraft carriers like the Nimitz class could be delayed, and the security of the United States jeopardized. The memo says they're confident they can get the shipments around Governor Batt, but the Batt administration vows to take on the Navy and the federal government.
And the memo is causing quite a stir in Washington and at the State House. 40% of the U.S. Navy fleet relies on nuclear fuel rods. And Navy officials say national security depends on Idaho's compliance. Dee?
Well, Jake, Idaho officials do seem pretty united in their efforts to keep this waste out of Idaho.
Well, this is one issue where environmentalists and state right activists will find a home in this issue, and it's an issue that promises to have many strange bedfellows in the days and weeks ahead. D. Jerry?
Big battle brewing. All right, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
In Idaho as a temporary roadblock and think that they can get around the governor. Kerry Cook of the Snake River Alliance blasted the Navy.
You know, there's something pretty wrong in this country when we've got the nuclear Navy back in Washington, D.C., writing up memos to the Office of Management and Budget showing.
Good evening. Friends, family members, and Baker City said goodbye to David Wheeler today.
Wheeler is the Forest Service worker who was murdered last Wednesday near Weiser. He was inspecting bridges on Man Creek the day he died. News Center 7's Jake Putnam attended the memorial service in Baker City, Oregon, one of two communities united in grief.
It's a terribly tragic day for everyone.
It really has struck the entire community.
Nearly 1,000 people came to Baker High Auditorium to pay last respects to the slain Forest Service engineer, David Wheeler. Friends say Wheeler was a man cut down in his prime.
He didn't seek the spotlight. He just was one of those quiet, behind-the-scenes kinds of guys who was involved in just about anything that you can think of.
A wall of photos at the memorial service show a man with zeal and a passion for life.
He has left a very large void, and he did it just always out of just generosity and the compassion that he felt for people and for the community.
The Wheeler family gathered for their final goodbye. Forest Service spokesman Gabe Rackus read their statement.
That there are many happy and funny memories to share, but one of the many sadnesses that comes from David's death is that the world for each of us seems less safe.
As Baker City residents mourned inside this packed auditorium in Weiser, the thoughts and prayers of churchgoers were also with the family.
Blake Coates of the Episcopal Church in Weiser says his community hurts too.
Our prayers are certainly with them. We feel
Our hearts are broken, and
Blanche Rice says the pain in Weiser runs deep.
Because you don't forget things like that. Just
Dave Wheeler lost his life in the line of duty. Friends and relatives say they're richer for knowing him and won't forget his passing. Jake Putnam, News Center 7.
The Wheeler funeral was one of the largest in Baker City history. A preliminary hearing on the two boys accused of killing Wheeler is scheduled for early May. While remembering David Wheeler, the Forest Service employee shot and killed just 4 days ago.
Funeral services for Wheeler just concluded in Baker City, Oregon a short time ago. Our Jake Putnam was there. He is on his way back, but joins us now on the phone with a report. Jake, can you kind of describe for us the scene over there in Baker today?
Well, Rich and Heidi, friends, family, and Baker City said farewell to Baker's favorite son, slain Forest Service employee David Wheeler. About 900 people packed the high school auditorium as spiritual hymns filled the air. Friends eulogized Dave Wheeler as a caring man cut down in his time before his life's work was done. Members of the Payette National Forest presented the state flower, the syringa, to the Wheeler family, an emotional show of support to a fellow Forest Service employee killed in the line of duty. And as sobs filled the auditorium, a bagpiper from Boise, Rich Furman, paid his respect, playing the song Amazing Grace. And I heard a small child say, "Why did Dave die?" And I think that's a question a whole community is asking. Now, Wheeler leaves behind a wife, Christy, a daughter, Melissa, and a son, Jace. And Rich, Heidi, is a very emotional service.
All right, Jake. Well, thank you very much for that report.
Jake will have a full report on the funeral tonight at 10 o'clock.
Well, even as Wheeler's funeral service concludes today, people from Baker City to Weiser predict their lives will be different without their friend. We talked to a co-worker about coping with the murder of someone close. Randy Nielsen says faith is getting him through this crisis.
It was a shock, but I think we're all dealing with it and making headway on that.
Nielsen says Dave Wheeler touched almost everyone in town, and the tragedy is a very personal one. One person said that there wasn't a church big enough for the service, and that's why the Wheelers' memorial service was held in the high school auditorium in Baker.
Meantime, police and federal officials in Washington County are still plotting how to continue.
This is the News Center 7 Evening Report.
Near Bliss tonight, investigators combed through the shockingly small remains of a military transport plane. They're searching for answers in the crash that killed 6 people. Good evening. Crews from Mountain Home Air Force Base are sifting through the wreckage of the C-130 airplane tonight.
The plane crashed north of Bliss yesterday, killing all 6 crew members on board. An investigation at the crash site is already underway. News Center 7's Jerry May has been following the story. He's standing by live north of Bliss. Any progress to report, Jerry?
Well, Heidi and Rich, it's mostly small bits of wreckage and even smaller body parts scattered over a wide area. Behind me, you see personnel from Mountain Home Air Force Base. They're guarding this dirt road that leads to the crash site. They had to actually bulldoze a path that goes about another mile to the crash site. You have to have a four-wheel drive utility vehicle to get back there. So it's over this rise that the C-130 crashed in rugged terrain. Dozens of little orange flags wave amid the debris in the desert foothills. The crews from Mountain Home have the miserable duty of marking every tiny bit of human remains. As for the plane, you can make out a wheel here, a door there, and a propeller 3 football fields away. There was obviously a huge explosion. But crews have located both flight data recorders. This is one. The other is kept in the debris for now.
So now the question becomes how much data will they be able to retrieve off of them.
One's an instrument data recorder, the other is a cockpit voice recorder. Both have external damage, so it's hoped they'll still hold clues.
They can do magic with those components sometimes and get quite a bit of data even though they appear to be damaged.
An amateur photographer got this video of the plane as it began the ill-fated return trip to Colorado from Gowan Field in Boise. The pilot was then forced to divert the plane to Mountain Home, reporting an in-flight emergency with one engine on fire.
That according to air traffic controllers at Mountain Home.
We're looking for the evidence of the fire, if in fact that existed.
Flight data recorders could yield information soon, but we may not know for 6 months to a year why the C-130 nosedived, taking the lives of 6 Air Force reservists from Colorado. And these are the names of the dead. The pilot was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Bookout. Other crew members were Captain Jeffrey Boyd, Chief Master Sergeant Jimmy Vale, Master Sergeant Jay Kemp, Staff Sergeant Michael Scheidman. They're all from Colorado Springs. Also killed, 2nd Lieutenant Lance Doherty. He's from Steamboat Springs, Colorado. They range in age from 24 to 53. All flew together regularly out of the 302nd Military Airlift Wing at Peterson Air Force Base near Colorado Springs. Yesterday, they flew other unit members to the National Interagency Fire Center in Boise for some annual training that gets underway tomorrow, in fact. Also tomorrow, possibly as soon as tomorrow, a team of crash experts will arrive to take over the investigation here north of Bliss. Now, there were some eyewitnesses to this disaster yesterday, and News Center 7's Jake Putnam has been talking to them.
Well, Jerry, eyewitnesses had hoped to rescue the survivors. Instead, all they found was wreckage and smoke. This is the crash from their perspective.
It disappeared over the edge of the hills and that, and I waited and I kept thinking, you know, you pull out, and it didn't, and then it was just the big explosion. And
John Burke and Bob Erkin's farm just 3 miles from the crash site. They heard the giant C-130 overhead and knew there was trouble.
And I heard this tremendous roar go overhead, and I knew that something sounded very strange.
Burke was in the backyard and said the whine of the aircraft engines was deafening.
And it became almost a scream, like the sound of a jet engine really screaming. And that's when I looked and saw, and the thing was just dropping straight. It sounded like thunder, or a large, loud bang and boom, I should say.
Both Erkins and Burke rushed to the scene. Erkins took his video camera. When the eyewitnesses reached this point, they saw the burning wreckage and the horrifying sights.
It was just bits and pieces. The whole thing was just small pieces. The only whole piece of the plane that one could recognize was just one wheel and a tire, just sitting up on the top part of the hill.
It was just a strewn mess from one end to the other. You could see the cowling or the nose cone and the cockpit of the airplane was there right in the ravine.
The wreckage burned and rain began to fall as other rescue teams arrived by helicopter. All were shocked by the scene.
Oh, it was just terrible, really, when you stop to think that the next day, today, it's Mother's Day. And here all these people were killed.
Spent most of the day with those witnesses. They're taking it awfully hard. Yeah, this is one Mother's Day they won't forget, but they said that their hopes and prayers are with the families of the victims in Colorado.
And that's what strikes you when you go out to the crash site. All those orange flags marking the remains, that's all that's left of these 6 men who are serving their country. Indeed, a very sad Mother's Day for 6 families back in Colorado. Rich and Heidi, back to you in Boise.
Well, Jerry, besides the flight data recorder, do you have...
With us today. While in office, former Governor Cecil Andrus was known for speaking his mind. Well, he's out of office now, but he is still speaking his mind. And this time, he is blasting the city of McCall over the city's violations of the Clean Water Act. The McCall sewage plant is discharging sewage effluent into the North Fork of the Payette River in violation of that Clean Water Act. Idaho at 5's Jake Putnam caught up with the former governor in Cascade, and he joins us now. Jake, the governor is pretty upset about this, isn't he?
Yeah, some people are saying, why this issue? But, the governor relishes his privacy since retirement. But he told me he's not going to watch his beloved Cascade Reservoir die a slow death. He fishes there and spends a great deal of time at his cabin, and he wants to make sure McCall doesn't duck their downstream clean water responsibilities.
A shiny new Cascade has blossomed to life in Valley County. Former Governor Cecil Andrus wants to keep it that way. Today he talked to the residents of Cascade. He's putting his political clout behind the fight to save the endangered Cascade Reservoir, a body of water that suffers from chronic nutrient loading. Andrus says the health of Cascade depends in part on the health of the reservoir.
It is a major, major contributor. And the value of our properties, the value of our property is tied directly to the quality of that lake. You just can't let it die.
The Cascade Reservoir Association is mounting a legal fight that would force the city of McCall to come to compliance with the Clean Water Act. Andrus backs the legal action.
We've been saying to them for the last few years, you have got to be good citizens and help us. Instead of that excuse was, oh shucks, gee whiz, we missed another year. Pooey, that's not going to be the case. I want a judge to tell them you won't miss it again.
Andrus has some political allies in the Cascade Sewer Cleanup Plan. 4 high school students calling themselves the Sewage Sisters, who have a low-cost, remarkable cleanup plan.
Everybody needs to push in together and just try to take as much of the phosphate loading out as they can.
The students have done extensive research and have the answer: coils of tubing that removes algae and nutrients from sewage discharge. A company in Britain markets biocoils, and the cost?
Originally, we have it estimated at approximately $3 million.
As opposed to the current plan of $10.4 million.
Or remove 92% of what is left. And so an overall reduction rate of about 96-97%, and that is guaranteed.
The students are trying to pitch their plan to the McCall City Council. Many say the plan is economically viable. Meanwhile, Andrus vows to fight on in an effort to save scenic Cascade Reservoir.
And the Cascade Reservoir Association filed their notice of intent to sue last April 24th. So now they have just under two months to come up with some sort of answer. And I was really impressed with these high school students.
I was too. Is anybody taking them seriously?
Governor Andrus does, okay. And I know that other people are starting to read their reports, and they've done incredible research. And this company that markets this has a big old folder that they gave the girls, and so they're running with it.
Well, that's really great. A good education for them, but also wouldn't it be great if that was the answer?
Yeah.
All right, Jake, thank you for bringing us up to date on this story. As you know, the poll...
An Emmy is one of the highest honors anyone in this business can get. Tonight, we're proud to tell you that one of our longtime reporters has won an Emmy this weekend in Seattle.
The National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences held their 32nd annual awards banquet last night. The proud recipient is News Center 7's Jake Putnam. He was nominated and won the award for a public service announcement on drinking and driving he produced last fall. Competition for the Emmy was stiff. Similar works in markets like Seattle and Spokane were also nominated. Other nominations included News Center 7's Night Report, which claimed a second-place spot. Congratulations to Jake. That is so great. We all just wanted to hold it. We were so excited for him. Have a great night.
We'll see you tomorrow.
More debate tonight over a proposed subdivision in the Boise foothills.
The Boise City Council and the Ada County Commissioners met to discuss the controversial Highlands-Hackberry subdivision off Bogus Basin and North Hackberry Way.
News Center 7's Jake Putnam filling in on the Night Beat tonight with the story. Jake?
Heidi, Jerry, Hackberry is one of the most debated subdivisions in recent history. City Council has already discussed Hackberry twice and the county 3 times, and the debate continues at this hour. Tonight's hearing is centering on fire access roads into subdivisions and traffic problems. Chris Cordy says Hackberry will include changing concerns.
Consideration wherever possible, the plan should reflect new thoughts that were being made underneath the ordinances. That was common open space, sensitive plants, public and private trails, access requirements for police and fire protection, grading that meets aesthetic and engineering realities.
North End homeowners say the Hackberry plan fails to include basic North End traffic problems.
It seems foolish to continue to allow development in the foothills when the traffic issues haven't been decided. The traffic from Hackberry is just probably the straw that broke the camel's back. It's just going to push us over the edge, and when Harrison Boulevard has exceeded its capacity, then the traffic will just move on to other streets, 13th Street, 15th Street, 18th Street, and to the detriment of the entire North End, not just Harrison Boulevard.
And the City Council will make a recommendation to the county on Hackberry. Tonight's hearings will be taken into consideration, but the fight is far from over. Jerry, Heidi?
Thank you, Jake.
In other news tonight, a woman accused of slitting the throat of a Boise baby is in jail tonight.
51-year-old Rayanne Leach is being held on $500,000 bond. Police say she attacked a 20-month-old girl last month.
News Center 7's Jake Putnam is following this story for us and joins us in the newsroom.
Well, Jerry D., little Mary Hickerson suffered cuts to both sides of the throat during the attack. After extensive medical care, she's recovering from those wounds in her North Boise home. Rayanne Leach was under evaluation at State Hospital South in Blackfoot and was transported back to Ada County Jail this afternoon. Leach will face aggravated battery charges for the attack on the young toddler.
The warrant has been served. The judge set bail on that warrant $500,000, and there will be an arraignment tomorrow afternoon at the Barrister Court, where for the first time she'll appear in court with counsel, be arraigned, bond will be set, and a preliminary hearing will be announced unless counsel asks for a continuance.
Bauer says aggravated battery carries the same penalty as attempted second-degree murder. If convicted, Leach could face up to 15 years in prison. Jerry?
All right, Jake, thank you. A brutal rape in Horseshoe Bend has sparked a search. Well, fire safety is one reason that Boise High School was scheduled for remodeling.
That's right, but those plans are being reconsidered at a school board meeting tonight, and News Center 7's Jake Putnam is live at Boise High with that story.
Well, Dee, should Boise High be remodeled or moved? That's the controversial question facing the Boise School Board tonight. You can see the problems facing Boise High from this practice field. This is the school's only playing field, and the varsity football, band, drill team, and sophomore football all competing their bust out to other sites. Over there you can see the north end neighborhoods that border the school. Property owners have a long list of complaints due to overcrowding. The tennis courts way back there beyond the parking dummies, those are not tennis courts anymore. Those are parking spaces. And over here to the right you can see the temporary classrooms to help ease overcrowding. Inside the school, the ancient hallways are crowded. We were there today. It's wall to wall, and if there's ever a fire here, that could present a major hazard. We talk to students, almost all we talk to want to stay and keep Boise High as it is, but they do favor renovations. Now, here are the options under discussion tonight, and remember that they have $11 million to work with from the reserve account. Option A would convert LeBois Junior High to a high school, and Boise High would be converted to a junior high. Option B would build a new junior high at Columbia Village to replace LeBois, and student bodies would be split, sending half to Boise and half to LeBois. We'll be there live tonight at 10. Should be very interesting. Jerry?
Tough choices. Thank you, Jake. And more school controversy in Meridian.
Are at the polls today. They are deciding the future of 7 schools in the state's fastest growing school district. District officials want to build new schools and remodel others to keep up with ballooning enrollment. Idaho at 5's Jake Putnam is following the bond election. He joins us now live from Meridian. Jake, I understand the polls have been open since 8 o'clock this morning. Any indication of how turnout is going so far?
Well, turnout, Dee, has been steady here at Pioneer Elementary School, and the bond is a critical issue here in Meridian. With explosive growth in this community, district officials say new schools have to be built and others are in dire need of remodeling. That's just to keep up with the avalanche of families that are moving into West Ada County. The proposed $14.7 million bond would pay for 3 new elementary schools and remodel 4 existing schools. District officials say that's without a tax increase. Growth and higher assessed property values would cover those costs. And Dee, like you said, the polls opened at 8 this morning, and voting will continue till 8 o'clock tonight. If you live in Meridian, you can go to any elementary or middle school. If you live in Canyon County, go to the cheese factory to vote. Dee?
That's right. Jake, thank you very much for the update there. And Rick Lance is here.
That story just a moment, but first, explosive growth in Meridian is sending voters to the polls.
Yesterday's bond election would build new schools and remodel existing ones in the state's fastest growing school district.
News Center 7's Jake Putnam is following the bond election, and he joins us now live from Meridian. Jake.
Well, Jerry, I'm here at Pioneer Elementary outside of Meridian. It has been steady all day. We just have some voters that have just arrived, a lot of people coming in after work. The bond is a critical issue here in Meridian. With the tidal wave of growth in this community, district officials say new schools have to be built, others have to be remodeled. That's just to keep up with the avalanche of families that are moving to western Ada County. Here's what the $14.7 million bond would pay for. 3 new elementary schools and improvements to 4 existing elementary schools. District officials claim that growth and higher property tax values would cover those costs. Now, voting started at 8 this morning. It will continue
till 8 tonight. If you live in Meridian, you can go to any elementary school or middle school to vote. If you live in Nampa, you have to go to the cheese factory to vote. We'll be back here at 10 with all the latest results. DJ.
Indeed. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you very much. Well, a bizarre case in eastern Idaho has officials look.
Good evening. The votes are being counted in Meridian tonight.
The residents went to the polls to decide the fate of a $14.7 million school bond. Here is what the bond would pay for: 3 new elementary schools and improvements to 4 existing elementary schools.
Jake Putnam's on the night beat tonight, and he's standing by live at Meridian School District headquarters with the latest. Jake, what do we have?
Well, Jerry, the air is thick with optimism here, but still we're a few percentage points from the magic number. Let's pull up those numbers right now. They're 10 percentage points ahead of last year. You can see here they're at 63.08 or 9% there. Yes, and they're at 36.1% no. They're ahead of last year's number. They aren't quite at the magic number. The magic number, as I said before, is 66.66%. They're about 63%. So it's really tight and really close here. Joining me now, Bob Haley, Superintendent of Schools here in Meridian. It's close. It's been a long haul. What's going through your mind right now?
Well, certainly at this point it looks like we're going to come up just a little bit short, and that's very disappointing, especially concerned about our students and the effect that this will have on them in another year, not having suitable facilities for them.
Do you think the growth message is coming through? Obviously, you're 10 percentage points better than last March's defeat. The message is getting out.
Well, I think so. There are 2 or 3 factors involved. This was a no tax rate increase. We did reduce the levy considerably since last time, and people are, I think, experiencing or seeing that growth that's occurring.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Once again, we're just short. We're just a few percentage points short. If we get the numbers, we're going to come back here. Back to you, Jerry Caroline.
All right, we'll check back. Thank you, Jake. High drama in this first day of closing arguments in the O.J. Simpson trial. They went into the night. They just got to Rabin.
Services were held at the Havath Beth Israel Synagogue on State Street.
By the bullets that killed Yitzhak Rabin.
And back here in the Treasure Valley, people said their own goodbye to Rabin.
Services were held at the Havath Beth Israel Synagogue on State Street, and News Center 7's Jake Putnam attended the service. He joins us from the newsroom. Jake?
Well, Carolyn, it was a somber service of music and prayers attended by members of the congregation and other well-wishers from throughout the Treasure Valley. Those attending paid tribute to a man who dedicated his life to Israel and to peace in the Middle East.
Boise's Jewish community said goodbye to Israeli Prime Minister Rabin. Daniel Stern told the congregation that the Jewish leader knew all too well the cost of peace.
Prime Minister Rabin voiced his concern that through the peace process, danger lurked at every side. That danger has now been made concrete and made into tragedy.
Episcopal Bishop John Thornton paid tribute to Rabin.
Though holding only a candle as he spoke and sang at that peace rally in Tel Aviv, he was as the sun rising in the night.
Bethany Church visited the Prime Minister last summer and is deeply saddened by his death.
I felt, again, the tug that I felt when John Kennedy was killed and Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Sadat. I don't know why blessed are not the peacemakers.
Now members of the congregation look to the future.
It's a transition. We're all very hopeful that Shimon Peres and the rest of the leaders in Israel can continue in the same vein.
And members of the congregation also said that the leader will be remembered as a man who was great in war, but even greater in peace. Jerry, Carolyn?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other news now. West One Bank employees are bracing themselves for the first round of corporate layoffs.
The bank tells us that at least 47 employees have received pink slips. News Center 7's Jake Putnam joins us now live from West One headquarters in downtown. Jake?
Well, Carolyn and Jerry, some West One sources say that this could be just the tip of the iceberg. Bank officials upstairs are keeping details of the layoffs quiet and are refusing on-camera interviews. But here's what we have learned thus far. As mentioned before, 47 employees have been laid off from headquarters right here in Boise. Officials have stressed that there will be more layoffs, and the bulk of the layoffs will come sometime next year, possibly February. Now, unofficially, we have heard that there could be over 1,000 layoffs in the future, but many workers will have the option to relocate in the Pacific Northwest. Now, no layoffs are expected from branch offices in Idaho, and in terms of why, bank officials say the shakeup is part of the merger with U.S. Bank. Carolyn, Jerry?
Boy, thank you, Jake. Probably something they didn't want to hear.
Yeah.